Hi, hello everyone. Very pleased to be here with such a nice crowd, and it was fantastic presentation I saw this afternoon, and I think we could really see like we've gone a long way, and it's true it's a 30-year-old technology, but I was very interesting to see that things are moving and they're moving fast. So I have a couple of questions, and the idea of this session was also to see what can we learn from this set of industries which have been, as you've seen in the presentation, which have been at the forefront of the utilization of additive manufacturing, and how can it help us for other industries? What is there to learn in terms of challenges, in terms of utilization that could make this technology become a bit more mainstream. So one thing I would like really to come back to is this question of certification, which has been mentioned by several of the speakers. And I would like to maybe try to come back on that and see for you where still are the principal challenges linked to certification and, in a way, certification, regulation, to make sure that, in such critical industries, I think there is a lot to learn for other industries. So who wants to start? Certification?
Yeah. Yes, I can start maybe because that's core of what we do. I think for us possibly the biggest challenge in terms of certification is if you try to run two jobs on the same machines, you will obtain different results today with additive. So how can you trust that the part will fulfill its duty? How can you trust, for example, if you have a witness sample, that it's actually representative of the part that you build?
Okay. Is anyone else having the same challenges?
I think there's a big challenge around standardization effectively. So I think for any technology to become stable, there's a battle between innovation, so improving the technology, and stabilizing what you've already got to make it mature and industrial and robust. And I see that there's, in some cases, there's a bit of playing around the boundaries, trying to push a little bit too much the real new stuff in before stabilizing the old. I think we need both, but I think certification will come when we have a common approach for the technologies that are more mature at an industry level.
Should we continue? Yes, please.
Totally agree. We need to certify and we need to standardize the process. We have been used castings and forging the last 50 to 100 years. So now we need to demonstrate that all the new components are safety, because it's our business, and we need to standardize and demonstrate that with all the activities prior to certify the components, because later on we can have a problem. So we need to be sure that all the components are safety before using them in flight.
All right, thank you.
I completely agree. I think we are challenging, and our aim in our company and with ESA is to try to certify these technologies, and also to share it with other industries. This is a challenge, to share it and to put in common, because the power internet and the other technologies going outside make us empower new ways to certify that probably doesn't know right now.
Thank you very much, Miguel. All has been said. Okay. So actually, there is an interesting question that I often hear. Is it because on the one hand we could say certification is difficult because the technology isn't mature, but another angle is to say that it's the very way the technology works. The fact that you're adding layers of material, and you're not just pushing some liquid inside of mold, that makes it that perhaps it's a unique certification challenge. What do you think? Is it more a question of technology is not mature enough, or is it the very way it works that makes certification more challenging?
I think we have to recognize that let's say the material product is the shape of the part. If you look at a piece of plate, or a piece of bar, the properties it gets are everything that goes into the processing of that, and that's a material product. When you machine a different geometry out of a piece of plate, yeah, you're not affecting directly the material properties of that. When you look at additive manufacturing, there's a coupling between the geometry of the part, which influences the processing. And I think we really need to realize that a little bit like casting, for example, there is that coupling, and we have to treat it appropriately. Yeah.
Okay. And okay, that's great. So, what would you need actually within the industry to help with certification? I mean, you're all working within the firm, within your company to have certification, and there have been movements in industries to try to get some kind of certification, like industry-wide certification services. Do you think that we need stronger standards? How do we need to work with that, with the standards organization, or because I mean, mostly what I find interesting is still in your applications. Very often, you're actually producing for yourself your product. But the question is, once you become a supplier, there are many more different challenges that arise, and that could actually create buyers, and other industries can say, okay, well, no, because I'm not going to do additive manufacturing myself. Suppliers would have to do it, and I don't have control and knowledge over that. So for you, what could help with certification outside of your company? Do we need?
In my opinion, I think that the most important point is which is the final objective of the component. If you are going to produce a tool, you are going to use the 3D printing as a green button. You just to press it, and you are going to obtain a 3D part that is going to meet the requirements. If you think that you are going to make an aerospace component, and you think that just with few weeks or few months of training, you are going to produce accordingly to the standards, and you are going to obtain all the knowledge that repeat the component each time, you are going to fail. You need to make a strong knowledge about the process prior to try to purchase the parts to the OEMs, to the end users. You need to think on which is the maturity of the technology and which are the requirements that all the companies we are going to put on them.
Okay, so and if we try to think about stakeholders trying to work on certification, who should we put it? So there are the companies, the clients. You said there is research needed, so should we put some academic research on that? What do you think? What do we need? Who do we put around the table?
Well, I mean, I think we have a responsibility as an OEM to work with our suppliers around the, let's say, material and process standardization, the standards, because otherwise we will drive a lot of cost, unnecessary cost and complexity and risk into the supply chain if everyone is developing their own way of doing it, their own standard and so on. Like I say, it's not to stifle innovation, because the innovation goes on in parallel, but it's just at some point you have to say, this is it, this is a clearly defined process, and we should all go forwards with this for the industrial application. The next one will buy its way in at a later stage, once it's at the right level of maturity.
Sorry, go ahead. I think to answer your first question on what is needed, I think we need people to talk to each other, and people all through the process chain, so powder suppliers, machine manufacturers, end users, OEMs. The OEMs have to give us their requirements. The powder suppliers have to understand what it means in terms of quality control for their powders, and the machine manufacturers have to tell us what they can achieve. So there needs to be a global discussion, and also we had, for example, the example of Thales, who explained to us there are various routes for qualification. People have to explain to each other their views in terms of doing that, share their experiences, and hopefully we come to a common set of guidelines for certification.
I think, is that one? Okay. And if there's one point to point out, is that ESA is offering openly different programs to collaborate with them. And if there is a company that have an idea to certify, to get new material, there's some budget with him to start working with the space sector and be a referent company. So this is open, and you can do it. And it's open, and you can get that budget to many of the of their necessities that are our necessities in real world.
I think it's a great program. It's a great idea. Are you aware of any other of such programs which
This is in the presentation,
Yeah.
all of them. I think you put that.
Yes. Yeah.
The budget is on the table, and that you can get and apply on those.
Okay, thank you. So I think what was clear from the presentation as well is we can really see that the way additive manufacturing 3D printing is adopted is through niches, even within companies, and a few of you actually have mentioned this sort of like niche adoption. So what do you see forward, and what do you see aside from certification are limitations that make that, you know, yes, the market is growing, yes, the technology is advancing, but, you know, it's been, like 20 or 30 years that we hear is going to change the world, and then we go slow, niche by niche. What for you is a path, or to get, from niches to sort of mainstream? What's missing?
I think we need some strong vertical integrators. So basically, we have the pre-processing, we have the AM process, which a lot of people buy into, they buy machines. And then you have all of these post-process steps, quality assurance and everything else, and an understanding of the lot. And today I'd say, until we have some people who are strongly able to integrate all of that, we will have an inefficiency in the system as a result of all of those interfaces, which will keep it small, I would say.
Okay, so vertical integration.
One of the things that are as important as certification for industrials is the qualification of the processes. And I like to see the processes in terms of the 3 R's: robust, repeatable, and reliable. You can certify whatever, but if you cannot produce it in such a way, you don't have anything, because at the end there has to be a serial production out of it. So we should not forget in that part. That goes together with certification, that requires some industrial and technology development, even for scientific research on the industrial aspects of the technology.
Right, so we have that more like the question of industry integration. What else? How do we move past that? I mean, do you have any other thought, or could you give? I mean, there are plenty of industries out there which are only using additive manufacturing for prototyping and tooling. So, in your view, what comes next? I mean, like healthcare, clearly it's a big market. Aerospace, aeronautics is a big market. We start seeing things in automotive. But if you think about actually manufacturing things with additive manufacturing and 3D printers, what do you see coming next? Which niches or which industries do you see are mature?
Well, we have some examples already here about clothing, for example, consumer goods. So with additive, you have the ability to put functions within your material, for example, printing electronic tracks within a polymer material for sensing abilities on clothes, things like that. So consumer goods, textile could be a next niche for additive manufacturing.
Okay, should we continue this way?
I think you just have to look at the oldest technologies, which have the most commoditized base, and then look at what you can do with those, and that's the next thing that will happen, And I think in the end, the latest technologies will always, for some time, be a niche, because people are really trying to recoup their investment on the technology development. I think you just need time, let's say, is the magic ingredient.
Okay, thank you.
Time and new ideas, I think that is the most important thing, that all the companies, we need to think in new applications, in new concepts that currently are not already designed because there are limitations with the current processes. So, as for example, lattice structure or some new ideas or new concepts like Aernnova, which now cannot be produced, are going to be the next steps. And in all the different sectors, new ideas and new concepts are going to appear every year.
Okay, thank you.
In my opinion, the new step will be coming from the sharing these technologies and mixing those of them. We are now with this additive manufacturing at the same time as the globalization of the information. And I cannot say what will be the next step apart from they say, but I'm sure going to be for the sharing of this technology and ideas. I'm pretty sure it's going to be shared, and it's going to be coming not from one point, from I mean, many of them. So it's a new paradigm of the innovation. I'm not looking at any spot interesting to see, just many spots and sharing sites like we can see as many websites. You can see different ideas, and I think the innovation will come from them, for the mixing and the people knowledge and sharing.
Thank you very much.
It's hard to say because I like to think that we don't know what we don't know. But well, that's part of the scientific progress. So one way of standardizing the technology development is to think that in low TRLs, in basic research, we need to invest 1,000 projects. In 1,000 projects are quite cheap projects with PhD thesis, studies at university level. But at the moment that you start to mature the technology, you start to spend more money in this particular project, so naturally you need to converge. So when you shoot in your roadmaps, you are shooting in one direction that maybe is not the correct, but you need to keep on going in that direction. That is the complexity of my business, the technology development, and I suppose that some of my colleagues in here.
Thank you very much. And to finish, let's imagine I'm a genie, and I can grant you one wish. So in relation to additive manufacturing and perhaps the difficulties or the challenges you face today with the technology or whichever, what would be your wish? You know, if you have one wish, what would it be? Miguel, would you like to start?
It's hard to say.
Okay. You have to say something.
Well, I prefer to start just thinking in terms of application.
Okay.
Because at the end we need to return the investments and look at the return of the investment in what we are doing.
Okay, so would it be like a wish that the technology would be cheaper then, for example, since you're speaking about return on investment?
Well, this is my pure opinion, but at the end we need to show the value of what we are doing. And that is our responsibility, either to success or if we fail, to let's say to detail the reasons of the failure, because that's part of the technology development. I cannot imagine a project on technology development that is only pointing at success, but sometimes you fail. But scientific is also about taking note of those failures.
Okay, so rather scientific research. Thank you very much, Miguel. So one wish.
I wish that in the future...
I wish you hadn't asked this question. Yes, I know.
Well, I imagine, more than wish, that one day we can have the product at home. Just giving you the file, the information, and give you adapted to your own necessity at home. And I think going to be a real thing in the coming years.
All right, so home fabrication. Yeah. What's your wish?
Standardization, I think that is the critical and is the main wish, because once we have obtained that level, later on all is going to go through them. Production is going to start in all the facilities. Suppliers are going to put facilities because it's the reality, and all the process itself is going to go ahead more quickly.
Okay, so scientific research, home fabrication, standardization. What's your wish?
I wish it was as easy as sometimes people make it out to be. Yeah, that's my wish. But I don't believe in fairy stories, so I think we have to roll our sleeves up and keep working. Yeah?
Okay, thank you very much. And finally?
I would say let's dream big. I wish additive can help us to one day live on the moon or in Mars.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much to you all. That was very interesting, and thanks again for your presentation. Thank you.